cowboy's hunt took a turn. Instead of meat, this cowboy brought home a wounded Apache woman. The sun was just beginning to rise when the cowboy saddled his horse outside his small wooden cabin. The early morning air was cool and fresh, carrying the quiet sounds of nature waking up. Birds chirped softly, and somewhere in the distance a stream gurgled as it moved over smooth stones. The cowboy, whose name was Sam, was a man of few words but many skills. He had lived on this land all his life, knowing every tree, rock, and animal track as if they were old friends. Today was a special day for Sam. He planned to go on a hunting trip, something he did many times before. Hunting was not just a sport for him. It was a way to provide food for his family and sometimes trade for things they needed. The winter months were coming, and he wanted to gather enough meat to last through the cold season when food would be harder to find. Sam had a strong and steady hand with his rifle and a sharp eye for spotting animals from far away. He was confident that this trip would be successful. Sam checked his gear one last time. His rifle was cleaned and ready, his knife sharpened, and his leather bag packed with essentials like water, some dried food, and a small first aid kit. His horse, a sturdy brown mare named Daisy, stood quietly nearby, trusting him without question. Sam patted her neck gently and mounted. With a soft word and a nudge from his heels, they started their journey into the thick forest. The forest was alive with sounds and smells. Sam breathed deeply, enjoying the fresh pine scent mixed with the earthy smell of wet leaves. As he rode deeper into the woods, he kept his eyes open for any signs of deer or other game. He moved carefully, trying not to make too much noise, so he would not scare the animals away. After a while, Sam spotted fresh deer tracks on the soft ground. He smiled quietly to himself. This was a good sign. He dismounted from Daisy and tied her to a tree nearby, so she could rest but stay safe. Sam grabbed his rifle and began to follow the tracks on foot, moving slowly and quietly through the trees. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting moving shadows on the ground. Sam knew these woods well, but he never took them for granted. Nature was beautiful but could also be dangerous if he wasn't careful. His ears listened for the snap of a twig or the rustle of bushes, and his eyes scanned the area for any movement. As he walked, memories came to his mind. He thought about his family waiting at home, his wife Mary and their 2 young children who loved to eat the fresh venison that Sam brought back from his hunts. He imagined their smiles and laughter, and it gave him strength to keep going. Suddenly, Sam heard a soft noise ahead. It was not an animal sound he recognized. He stopped and held his breath, listening closely. The noise came again, a faint cry, almost like someone calling for help, but too quiet to be sure. Sam's heart began to beat faster. He was alone in the wild, far from the nearest town or neighbors, but he knew he couldn't ignore the sound. He moved carefully toward where the noise came from, his rifle ready but not raised. The trees grew thicker here, and the ground was uneven with rocks and fallen branches. Sam had to be careful not to trip or make a loud noise. As he pushed through a thicket, the cries became clearer, weak but full of pain. Finally, Sam reached a small clearing. There, lying on the ground behind a bush, was a woman. She was dressed differently from anyone Sam had ever seen in his town. Her clothes were simple but made of soft leather, and her dark hair fell in messy waves around her face. She was badly hurt. Her leg was bleeding, and she looked very weak. Her eyes opened slowly when she saw Sam, filled with fear and confusion. Sam lowered his rifle and spoke in a calm voice. "It's all right. I'm here to help." The woman didn't answer, but she didn't try to move away either. Sam could see that she was scared, and he understood why. The world they lived in was full of tension between different people, and trust was not easy to come by. Sam gently reached into his bag and took out a clean cloth. He knelt beside her and carefully began to clean the wound on her leg. The woman flinched, but did not pull away. Sam worked slowly, trying not to cause more pain. He tore a piece of fabric from his shirt and wrapped it around her leg to stop the bleeding. As he worked, Sam thought about what to do next. Leaving her alone here was not an option, but bringing her back to his home could be dangerous. People in his town did not always welcome outsiders, especially those from different tribes or groups. But Sam's heart told him to do what was right, no matter the risk. He looked into her eyes again and said softly, "You'll be safe with me." The woman gave a small nod, barely visible, but it was enough for Sam to know she trusted him. He helped her sit up slowly, supporting her weight. Then, with great care, he helped her stand. She leaned heavily on him, but together they began the slow walk back to where Daisy was waiting. The journey back was not easy. The woman's injury made every step painful, and Sam had to move slowly to keep her steady. The sun climbed higher in the sky, making the forest warmer and brighter. Birds flew overhead and the sounds of the wilderness surrounded them, but Sam and the woman were focused only on getting back to safety. When they finally reached the horse, Sam lifted the woman gently and helped her onto Daisy's back. He climbed up beside her and held her tightly to make sure she wouldn't fall. Daisy started walking carefully down the trail, and Sam felt a mixture of relief and worry. He had never expected his hunting trip to end like this, but now his mission was different, helping this wounded woman survive. As they rode toward the cabin, Sam's mind was full of questions. Who was she? What had happened to her? Why was she alone and hurt in the middle of the forest? He knew he might never get all the answers, but for now, his priority was to keep her safe and help her heal. Back at the cabin, Sam's wife Mary was surprised to see him returning with a stranger. At first she was unsure and cautious, but when she saw the woman's condition, her kindness took over. Together, Sam and Mary prepared a place for the woman to rest and began to care for her wounds. That evening, as the fire crackled in the small hearth, Sam sat quietly watching the woman sleep. He felt a strange mix of emotions: concern, hope, and a sense of something new beginning. What started as a simple hunting trip had turned into a story of unexpected kindness and courage. Sam knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he was ready. He had learned long ago that life in the wild was full of surprises, and sometimes the greatest adventure was helping another human being when they needed it most. The morning sun shone softly through the small window of the cabin. Inside, the wounded woman lay on a rough but clean bed made from blankets and animal skins. Her breathing was steady but shallow, and her dark eyes slowly opened to the new day. She looked around the room, unfamiliar with everything she saw. The wooden walls, the simple furniture, and the quiet comfort were very different from the wild forest where she had been found. Sam was already up, moving quietly around the cabin to prepare a simple breakfast. His wife Mary was nearby, tending to a small fire where water would boil for tea. Both of them knew the day would bring new challenges, but they moved with calm and care, hoping to give their guest a sense of safety. The woman looked weak, but there was a quiet strength in her gaze. She did not speak the same language as Sam and Mary, and her clothes marked her as someone from a very different world. Sam had heard stories from travelers and traders about the Apache people, proud, brave, and deeply connected to their land. He wondered if this woman was from that group, but he did not want to ask too much too soon. Trust had to come slowly. As the woman lay resting, memories flashed in her mind. She had been traveling with her family through the mountains when they were attacked. The details were blurry, but she remembered the fear and pain as she fled from danger. She had been separated from the others and left to find her own way. The injury had made her weak, and she feared what might happen if she could not find help. Sam approached her gently, speaking softly in English, hoping the calm tone might comfort her. The woman watched him carefully but did not respond. Sam understood that communication would take time. He took a small leather pouch from his pocket and showed her some dried berries he had brought for his family. Slowly he offered her one. She hesitated, but eventually accepted it, placing it carefully in her mouth. Mary joined them, bringing warm water and a cloth to freshen her face. The woman's eyes showed a flicker of gratitude. It was the first sign of trust. Over the next few hours, Sam and Mary worked quietly, taking care of her wounds and making sure she was comfortable. They talked softly to each other, sharing what little they could in broken words and gestures. Outside, the world was waking up. Birds sang in the trees, and a gentle breeze moved the leaves. But inside the cabin, time seemed to slow. The woman's presence was like a quiet storm, changing everything Sam and Mary had known. Word began to spread slowly through the nearby settlement. Neighbors who had heard of Sam's hunting trip were curious when they saw him return with a stranger. Some were suspicious. Others were concerned. The history between settlers and Native American tribes was complicated and often filled with fear and misunderstanding. One afternoon, a few men from the town came to Sam's cabin. They wanted to see the woman for themselves. Sam stood firm but polite, explaining that she was hurt and needed help. The men looked at the woman with a mixture of curiosity and caution. One of them, an older man named Jacob, spoke quietly. "We don't know if she can be trusted. It's dangerous." Sam nodded, understanding their fear, but he answered clearly, "Right now, she is a person who needs care. We don't know her story, but that doesn't mean we turn her away." The men left, some unconvinced, but none dared to argue further. Sam knew this was only the beginning. Helping this woman could change many things, not just for him and his family, but for the whole community. As the days passed, the woman began to heal. Her legs slowly grew stronger, and she could sit up for longer periods. Sam and Mary continued to bring her food and water, and they made her a warmer place to rest near the fire. The woman, who Sam decided to call Naya, a name he heard in stories meaning someone who walks with grace, started to show more signs of life. One evening, as the sky turned orange and purple with the setting sun, Naya reached out her hand to Sam. It was a small but powerful gesture. She wanted to show that she trusted him and was thankful for his kindness. Sam took her hand gently, feeling a connection that went beyond words. With patience and care, Sam tried to learn more about Naya's story. He drew pictures in the dirt outside, using simple shapes to ask questions. Naya pointed to a drawing of a mountain and then made a motion of running and hiding. Sam understood she was telling him about the attack and her escape. Mary taught Naya a few English words, and Naya taught Mary some words from her own language. It was a slow and sometimes frustrating process, but it brought moments of joy and laughter. The walls between them began to break down, replaced by a fragile friendship. But not everyone in the community felt this way. Rumors began to spread. Some said the woman was a spy, others feared she might bring trouble. Sam felt the pressure growing. He knew that keeping Naya safe might mean facing the judgment of those he had called neighbors and friends for years. One afternoon, Sam sat with Naya outside, watching the clouds move across the sky. She pointed to the horizon, then to herself, and whispered words he didn't understand. He wished he could ask what she meant. Suddenly, Naya's eyes filled with tears. She was far from her home, her family, and everything she had known. Sam put his hand on her shoulder and gave a reassuring nod. He wanted her to know she was not alone anymore. That night, Sam and Mary talked quietly about the future. They knew that healing Naya was just the first step. What would happen when she was well enough to leave? Would she want to stay? Could she return safely to her people? Sam looked out the window at the stars shining brightly. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also a deep hope. Sometimes, life brought unexpected moments when kindness could change everything. The next day, Sam decided to take a risk. He would try to learn more about Naya's people and find a way to help her reconnect with them. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he believed that understanding and respect were the only way forward. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the forest around the cabin seemed less threatening and more alive with possibility. Sam, Mary, and Naya were beginning a journey, not just of survival, but of trust, friendship, and hope. Days turned into weeks, and the small cabin where Sam, Mary, and Naya lived slowly became a place of healing and quiet friendship. Naya's leg grew stronger each day, and with Sam and Mary's care, she began to regain some of her strength. But the biggest challenge was not just healing the body, it was building trust between them all, and between Naya and the outside world. Sam watched carefully as Naya moved around the cabin. At first, she was cautious and slow, afraid to put too much weight on her injured leg. But little by little, she began to walk without help, her steps growing firmer and steadier. Her eyes, which had once been filled with fear, now showed a quiet determination. It was clear she was not just surviving. She was preparing for whatever came next, Sam and Mary tried to make Naya feel at home. They shared their meals with her, telling stories about their lives and listening when she tried to share hers. Even though they did not speak the same language well, they found ways to understand each other. Simple gestures, drawings in the dirt, and shared smiles became the bridge between their worlds. One evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned soft shades of pink and orange, Sam sat outside with Naya. He had built a small fire, and the warm light flickered on their faces. Sam wanted to learn more about Naya's past, but he knew he had to be patient. She had been through a great deal of pain and loss, and trust was something that had to grow slowly. Naya pointed to the mountains in the distance and then to herself. She made a motion as if running, then hiding. Sam understood she was telling the story of how she had escaped from danger. But there were many details he did not know. Who had attacked her? What had happened to her family? Why was she alone now? These questions stayed in Sam's mind, but he did not press her too hard. Instead, he showed her pictures he had drawn of animals, people, and places. Naya looked at them carefully, sometimes shaking her head, sometimes nodding. She began to draw her own pictures in the dirt, telling her story in pictures instead of words. Mary helped by teaching Naya a few new words in English every day. Naya tried to teach Mary words in her own language, too. This exchange brought moments of laughter and hope. It was clear that despite their different worlds, they shared a desire to connect and understand each other. However, not everyone in the nearby town was happy about Naya's presence. Some people whispered behind Sam's back. They were afraid and unsure about what having an Apache woman in their midst might mean. Old fears and misunderstandings ran deep, and Sam could feel the tension growing. One afternoon, a small group of men from the town came to visit Sam. Their faces were serious, and their voices low but firm. They questioned Sam about the woman, asking why he was helping someone they saw as a stranger and possibly a threat. Sam stood tall and answered calmly, "She was hurt. I helped her because it was the right thing to do. We don't know her story yet, but she is a human being, just like us." The men exchanged looks but said no more. Some left with doubt in their eyes, others with silent warnings. Sam knew that helping Naya would not be easy, but he also knew he could not turn his back on someone in need. As days passed, Sam made a decision. He wanted to help Naya reconnect with her people if possible. He believed that understanding and respect were the key to peace and healing. But finding her people would not be simple. The land was vast, and old conflicts still shaped the boundaries between communities. Sam began to ask travelers and traders who passed through the area about the Apache tribes nearby. He learned about their customs, their stories, and the places they called home. Each piece of information helped him form a plan to help Naya return to her family safely. Meanwhile, Naya grew stronger. She started helping Mary with small tasks around the cabin. She learned how to prepare food using some of the local plants and even tried her hand at sewing simple clothes. The cabin, once quiet and tense, now felt more like a home filled with new energy and hope. One morning as the sun rose high and warm, Naya stood outside, looking toward the distant mountains. Sam walked up beside her, sensing that she was ready to talk more about her past. He sat quietly, waiting for her to share what she could. Naya took a deep breath and began to tell her story, using a mix of broken English, gestures, and drawings. She spoke about her family, the place where she grew up, and the people she loved. She told of the attack that had separated her from them and the fear she felt being alone in the wilderness. Sam listened carefully, feeling a deep respect for her courage and strength. He realized that her story was not just about survival. It was about hope and the desire to find a way back to the life she had lost. With this new understanding, Sam knew it was time to act. He would travel to the nearby Apache lands to seek help in returning Naya to her people. He prepared for the journey, gathering supplies and telling Mary about his plans. Mary was worried but trusted Sam's judgment. She promised to take care of the cabin and Naya while he was gone. Naya, now able to walk and even help with chores, expressed her gratitude with a quiet smile. Before leaving, Sam and Naya shared a moment of quiet friendship. Though they came from very different worlds, They had formed a bond built on kindness and respect. Sam hoped this journey would bring them closer to peace and understanding. As Sam rode away from the cabin, the wind carried the scent of pine and earth. The path ahead was uncertain, but he was determined. His hunt had taken a turn he never expected, leading him not just to game but to a chance to change lives. For Naya, for his family, and for their shared future. Sam's journey to find Naya's people was not an easy one. The land stretched wide and wild before him, with tall trees, rolling hills, and deep valleys. The sun was hot during the day, and the nights were cold and quiet. Sam rode steadily on his horse, Daisy, trusting his own knowledge of the land and the stories he had heard from travelers. He knew that the Apache people lived in the mountains to the west. Many traders had spoken about their villages hidden in the hills and their strong ties to the land. Sam hoped to find someone who could help him return Naya safely to her home. More than that, he wanted to show that kindness could build bridges between two very different worlds. Along the way, Sam met several people. Some were friendly, others cautious. He asked carefully about the Apache villages and learned which paths to take and which to avoid. One older trader named Eli warned him, "The Apache are proud and protective. Not everyone welcomes strangers, especially from the settlers. You'll need to show respect and patience." Sam listened closely and nodded. He was prepared to face challenges, but his heart was full of hope. After several days of travel, Sam reached the edge of a small Apache village. The homes were made of wood and earth, blending naturally with the surrounding forest. Smoke rose gently from fires, and children played near the clear river that ran through the village. The people looked strong and proud, wearing clothing made from animal skins and decorated with colorful beads. Sam felt nervous but kept his calm. He approached slowly, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture to show he meant no harm. The villagers stopped their work and watched him carefully. An elder man stepped forward, his face lined with years of wisdom and experience. Sam explained why he had come. He told the elder about Naya, the woman he had found injured in the forest, and how he wanted to help her return home. The elder listened quietly, then nodded slowly. "You have done a kind thing," he said. "But you must understand, she has been through much. Her people worry for her." The elder invited Sam to stay in the village while they prepared for Naya's return. Sam was grateful. During his stay, he learned about the Apache way of life, their respect for nature, their stories, and their customs. He saw the strong bonds between family members and the care they showed for one another. Meanwhile, back at the cabin, Mary and Naya were waiting anxiously. Naya had grown more comfortable with her surroundings, but missed her family deeply. Mary did her best to keep her company, teaching her more words and sharing stories about Sam and their life. One evening, as Mary and Naya sat near the fire, Naya showed Mary a small carved necklace. It was a gift from her mother, a symbol of protection and love. Mary understood the meaning and promised Naya that Sam would bring her home soon. When Sam returned to the cabin, he brought news from the village. The elder had agreed to help, and arrangements were made for Naya's safe journey back to her family. The village had sent a small group to guide her through the mountains, and Sam would accompany her part of the way. Naya was overjoyed. She hugged Mary tightly, tears of happiness in her eyes. The cabin, which had been a place of healing and hope, was now filled with the excitement of a new beginning. The day of departure arrived. Sam, Naya, and the guides set out early in the morning, the sun casting long shadows on the ground. The journey was not easy. The mountain paths were steep and rocky, and the weather changed quickly. But Naya moved with growing strength, supported by Sam and the guides. Along the way, Naya shared stories of her childhood and the traditions of her people. Sam listened with respect, fascinated by the richness of her culture. He realized how much he had learned from this journey, not just about a distant tribe, but about courage, kindness, and the power of understanding. As they reached the edge of the Apache lands, a sense of peace settled over the group. Naya's family was waiting, their faces filled with relief and joy. Tears were shed, and stories were shared late into the night. Sam felt a deep happiness, knowing he had helped reunite Naya with her loved ones. It was a moment that showed how acts of kindness could overcome fear and build new friendships. When Sam returned home, Mary greeted him warmly. The cabin felt fuller now, with the memories of the journey and the hope for a future where people could see beyond their differences. Life slowly returned to normal, but Sam knew that the story of the wounded woman he had found in the forest would stay with him forever. It was a reminder that sometimes the greatest adventures come from unexpected moments, and that kindness has the power to change the world. After Sam returned from the journey to the Apache village, life at the cabin began to settle back into a peaceful rhythm. The days were filled with work, repairing fences, preparing meals, and tending to the small garden that Mary had started. But something had changed in the air. There was a new sense of hope and understanding that lingered quietly between Sam and Mary, and even in the empty spaces where Naya had once rested. Though Naya had returned to her people, her presence had left a lasting mark on the lives of everyone at the cabin and in the nearby settlement. The story of the wounded woman and the kind cowboy spread slowly from neighbor to neighbor. Some people who had once been wary began to see things differently. They started to question old fears and prejudices, wondering if perhaps kindness was the path toward peace. Sam often thought about Naya. He wondered how she was doing, if she had found happiness again with her family. He hoped that she would remember the time she spent at the cabin, not only as a place of healing but as a place where she was treated with respect and care. One afternoon, as Sam worked outside fixing a broken fence post, Mary came to him with a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "This came with a traveler," she said softly. Sam carefully unwrapped the bundle to find a small wooden carving. It was shaped like a bird, beautifully detailed, and worn smooth from years of handling. Mary smiled. "It's from Naya. A gift to thank us for helping her." Sam held the carving in his hands, feeling a deep connection to the woman who had changed his life in unexpected ways. The bird seemed to carry a message, a symbol of freedom, hope, and new beginnings. Life at the cabin went on, but the world outside was not always so kind. There were still those who held on to old fears and grudges. Sam understood that change was slow and often difficult. But he also knew that even the smallest acts of kindness could grow into something powerful. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills and the sky turned soft shades of pink and purple, Sam and Mary sat on the porch. They talked quietly about the future, about their children, their hopes for peace in the land, and the lessons they had learned from the time they cared for Naya. Mary reached out and took Sam's hand. "You did a brave thing," she said. "You showed that kindness is stronger than fear." Sam nodded, feeling the truth of her words. Sometimes the path we didn't expect is the one we need to take. The seasons changed, and with each passing day, the memory of the wounded woman grew into a story of courage and compassion. It was a story Sam shared with his children as they grew, teaching them about respect, understanding, and the power of helping others. In the years that followed, Sam and Mary's small cabin became a symbol of hope in the community. Neighbors came to visit, sharing stories and learning from one another. The walls that once divided were slowly breaking down, replaced by new bonds of friendship and trust. Sam often thought back to the day he found Naya injured in the forest. What had begun as a simple hunting trip had turned into a journey that changed many lives. It was a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected moments hold the greatest meaning. And as the wind whispered through the trees and the stars shone bright in the night sky, Sam knew that kindness, courage, and hope would always light the way forward.